I'm here with Bernie and Shelley. You have kind of a story that we have to tell to lead into why we're going to talk about what you designed, okay? And this is something that's like, yeah, so tell your story.
Well, I've been quilting for many years, and I slipped and fell and hit my forehead on the cement, and it knocked me out.
It did more than that.
Well, it did. I was hurt, and I injured my brain. And so when I was starting to recover and could actually get down to my sewing machine and start sewing, I realized that I could not put my blocks together without them going upside down and sideways. And so I decided I needed to create a way that I knew exactly where my pieces went, and so it was easier for me because I couldn't stop quilting.
Right. Now, did you say, hey, Bernie, this is a situation? I mean, how did this work?
I did. I knew that I needed to have we call this a blueprint of the block. It was the base that I didn't know.
Okay, so a blueprint is what, Bernie?
Well, like the name implies, it's an actual blueprint for the block, and it's a way that Shelley or anybody can lay out their colors. You'll see it's in grayscale, darks and lights, and it very clearly shows where your darks and lights go. And Shelley goes as far as to add pressing arrows, pressing directions, so that as she's sewing this together and pressing it, it's very easy for her to tell which way it's supposed to be pressed. And then the piece that's been sewn goes back on here, and it kind of lives on the block or on the block builder until it's finished.
And I'm going to say that these patterns you can get in books, in patterns, and many times they do have the arrow direction. I know my books do. I always, which way do you press and all that, so you don't have to think about it. And so mine, of course, everything is neat and tidy with you. I probably would just draw it out and then just kind of, okay, this is dark, and something like that.
Some people come up with it on EQ or a quilting software. You might take a photocopy of a pattern. And come up with your way of doing it.
Okay, so this is the block builder, right?
Yeah, we call this the block builder base, and you can take the actual blueprint, and Shelley always puts top on top so she knows.
Okay.
And then this piece will lay back on top of this, and you can see it shows through. And why we like this idea is because as you lay your pieces on, they kind of stay with the block builder.
It's a portable design wall, you guys.
Portable design wall. Yeah.
So you can take it straight over to your sewing machine and work, and you don't have to think about it. It's all there.
Yep.
I love that. Okay, so so then what do? You're working on a block over here. Tell me some considerations.
I am, and the reason that I put the word top at the top of the block is that I am often working with these little prints that have an obvious direction. And so, for example, the little rose or the little tulips in this flower and the birds, and then this pinwheel in the center, they are all directional prints. And I want to keep all of these in the right direction. It helps me, I think it brings a calm to the block. And especially when you think about all of my quilts that do have a lot of pieces in them and a lot of different fabrics, I want one calm thing in there, and that to be the direction of the print.
So you have these beautifully pieced triangles and sashing and all that are perfectly flat and wonderful. We know how to do that now.
Yes.
So I would just start, like, put this here maybe?
Yeah, so I lay my pieces out. I would take these, after I've done my half square triangles, I lay them out in position where they're going to be when I'm sewing the block.
And my guess, knowing you, Shelley, you would trim these all perfectly, right?
I would, and you're so right. And these blocks are actually cut bigger so that I can trim them down.
Yeah, how many of you guys do that? Go up 1/8 of an inch and then trim down? Yeah, right?
And this makes me happy when you have these nice little points.
I think it makes everybody happy.
Really.
And so then here we have our sashing.
Yeah, then I put my little sashing. Now, I do want to point one thing out. When you're doing precision piecing, this block is starting from the center going to the outside. So we pieced the 9 patch, and one thing I didn't point out is that you want to measure. This block in the center, I want to measure and make sure it's the size that it's supposed to be when you're done. If it's not, then it throws off the whole block. So after you piece, measure, and then
Okay, and
continue on.
repeat, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
So once I have that laid out, all the pieces cut, then following the pattern, I begin to sew my pieces together, two, all the way around. And then I will start to add the sides and sew them
So
together.
Shelley, you've just kind of like, oh boy, you've opened a new can of worms for me because I would never in a million years have considered this directional.
It's directional.
Yes, I see that. I see
Because
that.
like if you put this one, see,
Yeah, that's
you
kind of
wouldn't even notice it.
right.
But yeah,
Here, let's put it back so people can see. That would make you out of your mind.
Well, it would. I have to admit.
So, Bernie, this is really great stuff. And I know you're always working on new products to make Shelley's lives, our lives easier.
Yep.
These block builders are, how are they available to get them?
They are available in 2-packs and they're available in 6-packs. And I do believe that our manufacturer is going to also send them out in bulk.
Okay.
Because maybe not everybody wants a 6-pack. Typically, Shelley might work on half a dozen to 10 at a time.
Okay.
We have 3 different sizes for 9 inches, 12 inches.
And one
15
thing
inches.
that I don't think we said, but we were talking about it at break, you always make it a little bit bigger.
Yes.
Okay, explain that.
Much easier to lay out your pieces.
Okay.
This blueprint is not meant to be this finished size of the block.
Okay.
It's just meant to be for placement.
Okay,
So you always make it bigger than your block. And
Perfect.
then it's easier to see underneath what's going on.
Perfect.
Well, I love that. I especially love the fact that you can move it around without it sliding off.
Oh, I love that.
Because I use a cardboard box or something like that. And the wind comes along, or and it all slides off. So.
Hey, there was a story that when you were in her sewing space.
Yeah, I was going out to the barbecue, and on her ironing board, she had 3 of these laying with just completely filled with individual pieces, and I knocked them off, and they all hit the floor. And I was able to, by just looking at the block builder, put them all back in and escape totally unscathed.
But you know what? You're safe. If you bring her a latte every morning, there is no worries.
Yeah,
Very
that's
safe.
true.
Yeah.
You guys, this